Hello, everyone. I want to wish you all a happy Columbus Day, and I want to bring to your attention one of the important lessons from history. Okay, and that is you gotta protect your borders. Okay, because what happened about 400 years ago is that you had migrants from Europe that came to the American continents, and the inhabitants here failed to protect their borders. Okay, and what happened is they were eventually evicted and exterminated from their own lands. Okay, so that's the true Columbus Day story, and that's I mean, I think that's very relevant today because you've got, I mean, all over the world you've got migrations going on, mass migrations. Um, People from South America, Central America trying to come into the United States. But also in Europe, you've got people from Africa, from other parts of Eastern Europe, trying to get into Europe. And if you look at history, mass migrations are never good for the inhabitants, right? Because the migrants in general tend to be very aggressive. Okay, even if initially they seem friendly, even if initially they're like, oh, these are just poor, starving people, the nature of migrants is that they are risk takers. Okay, people that are willing to travel, especially make a dangerous trip into another area, are risk takers. Okay, so they're going to do things that the locals are not willing to do, that are unprepared to deal with. Okay, so that's just the nature of migrants. It has always been. Okay, migrants usually, if they're not immediately repelled, they in general tend to dominate and conquer the lands that they move into, and the people, the residents that live there are either evicted or they're just killed off. Okay, so that's the history of migrations, and I think Columbus Day is the day that we should consider this. Okay, so I think that what the Europeans did is kind of like the natural human thing to do. Okay, that's what humans have been doing for thousands of years. So you can't fault them for going into an area, right, where they didn't, and staying where they didn't receive any real resistance. Okay, the Indians made the mistake of allowing these people to come into their land. They were basically enamored by the trinkets that the Europeans had, because the Indians at the time were essentially living in the Stone Age. Okay, they had stone tools and wooden tools. I think the best that they had in Northern America was some copper tools. I think in South America they had other metals as well, but in North America, yeah, 100% like purely Stone Age. Like when we think of Indians, a lot of times we associate them with tomahawks and horses. Well, all of those tomahawks that you see in the movies, those all came from the Europeans. Okay, the Indians didn't have any, didn't have the capacity to smelt iron. Okay, the horses in North America had been extinct for thousands of years. So all those horses that you see the Indians doing their raids on, those all came from Europe. So when we think of the classical Indians of the 1800s, that's not true Indian culture, right? That's something that had developed fairly recently. Those Indians of the 1800s were nothing like the Indians of 200 years earlier that were kind of like living in like a pure Stone Age. Okay, so yeah, you had these Europeans that came in. They had these trinkets made out of iron, and they had these horses, and so the Indians wanted those things, and especially the Indians on the East Coast. It's kind of funny. It's like the Indians actually went to war with other Indians to try and prohibit access to the Europeans. Okay, because the Indians on the East Coast, they wanted to be the middlemen. They wanted to buy or trade for a lot of these trinkets that the Europeans had, and then turn around and sell them to other Indians further out west, that didn't have access to the Europeans. So that was a big thing early on, like in the in the 1600s, when the Europeans first came to the coast. Like you had Indians actually trying to keep other Indians out west from getting to the Europeans, and essentially bypassing them. Okay, so that was one of the factors that led to a lot of warring between these Indian tribes, which had been doing the human thing and warring with each other for for forever. I mean, that's what people do. Okay, there's a people have been bred for thousands of years to fight with each other. Okay, that's what people do. That's why humans are at the top of the food chain, right? That's why we are the apex predators on the planet, because humans are driven to war. So when you see migrants coming into your land, okay, keep in mind that in their genetics, in their DNA, they've got like thousands of years of war breeding there, okay, and they are just as capable of killing and taking whatever you have as any other human, right? Because again, that is what humans are, right? We've been bred for thousands of years to be war machines. Okay. So anyway, something for you guys to think about, especially on this Columbus Day, and with reference to all the migrants that the Democrats are trying to import into this country.